My name is Brian Fleming, and I got into public speaking about 10 years ago, and one of the first pieces of advice somebody gave me, this guy told me, he said, hey, if you want to be less nervous, just picture everybody in the audience naked. And I just want to say, how you doing? And no, I'm not picturing you naked. I don't know if you've ever encountered a stranger who is naked, but nothing about that makes your environment more comfortable or less nervous. And so I don't know that he was exactly the kind of leader I'm going to be talking about today, but I'm glad you're all here. I think you guys are just amazing. You're going to college, you're doing things, you're taking advantage of opportunities in your life that a lot of people don't have. And you've probably overcome a lot to be here. And so I want to ask you a question, though, and I want some interaction with this. What do you think is the first rule of leadership? Anybody, just say something. First rule of leadership.
Make good choices.
Make good choices?
Dedication.
Dedication?
You got to realize a leader and a boss are two different things.
That is excellent. Yes. In fact, that's one of my points. You nailed it, dude. Actually, the first rule of leadership is everything is your fault. And nobody likes that. People can argue till they're blue in the face, but when everything goes south, who gets the attention? The leader. And when everything goes right and you succeed, what do you have to do? You have to give away all the credit to everybody else on your team who helped you accomplish the mission, whatever that was. Now, you're probably going to hear me say a lot of things like mission and words like that. I used to be in the military, so I think very military-minded. The terminology, if I use a term that's unique to the military, I'll try and translate it for you. In fact, I'm going to share some points with you, and I'll definitely translate those for you. But if you want to make a real difference in the world, I hear a lot of people say they want to make a bigger impact, they want to make a greater difference. That's awesome. But if you want to be able to do that, if you want to graduate college, you want to get better opportunities, you have to become the kind of leader that other people want to follow. You have to be able to add value to the environment around you. You have to realize that leadership actually has nothing to do with you and me and everything to do with everybody around us. It's our ability to influence people around us. And so imagine that you could do things in a way, that you could communicate with people in a way that would allow you to influence them and have them be a part of what you're doing, whether it's your club on campus or maybe you're in a job and you're trying to get something done or get something changed to a certain way. If you could do things in a way where you could get other people to listen to you and you can get their attention, and it not only helps you accomplish your thing, but it also benefits everybody else. That's real leadership, by the way. You know, the other kind is just sort of manipulation that selfish people do. They're trying to get their thing, and they don't care what it costs everybody else. Well, that's not cool. That's not leadership. That's just called a manipulator in a lot of cases. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, because the problem in today's society, one big problem, is that so many people have a college degree that when you get out of school, or as you're going through school, it's oversaturated right now in our economy. Now, I am all for higher education. Obviously, I'm here. I've been to college. But it has now become an increased competition because so many people are on this plane. It's like the economy. There's supply and demand. When there's more supply than there is demand, you can't charge as high prices. When there's more demand for something and there's only a few things, you can turn your prices up. More people want it. So that's the kind of thing we're working with. And the way to break through that, one of the greatest ways, is to become a more effective leader. And that, again, you can look on YouTube, look on Instagram. Who's getting all the attention? The people who have lots of followers. They could be totally ignorant to an issue and put out a video about something they know nothing about, and people go, yeah. And then you think about what they said and you go, You just don't know, but they got their message out, didn't they? Because they have people who are following them, all right? I learned a lot about leadership in the military. The United States military has been called by a lot of people the supreme leadership organization in the world. And the type of leadership that we get in the military, unfortunately, you all don't get, which is why I'm so grateful to be here. I want to share this with you because I want to see you all succeed in whatever it is you do. Our country has been in some bad shape. It's a good time, but it's also been in bad shape for a long time. And in like 10 or 15 years, it's going to be you guys running companies. It's going to be you guys who are in government. Like, it's a big thing when you realize, like, the future of this country and our families and our lives, it's like literally on us. Like, there is no rescue. Like, it's us. There is nobody else coming to do the job for us, which is why this is so important. And so I'm going to share with you these 6 ways to become the leader that other people want to follow. But before I do, there are some myths that people believe about leadership that often hold them back, and it sort of handicaps them in their leadership abilities. And I just want to highlight a few of those things. The first thing is people say, you know, I'm not a natural born leader. So maybe you get an opportunity to lead and maybe you shrink back from it because you think that. You're like, someone else is a better leader than me. The truth is that leaders are not born, they're made. Leadership is a learned skill, it's a learned thing. So as you develop, I mean, I just turned 33 years old. All right. Yes, I graduated high school in 2003, which was not right after the War of 1812, as one guy put it. All right. I got about 10 or 12 years on you guys. And so I've learned this in my time. It's like it's a never-ending cycle of learning. I don't know if anybody ever ends the leadership journey. But the better you become, the more opportunities you're going to have and the more influence you're going to have. And there's also a thing, you know, and I saw this in the military. I see it everywhere. We live in a world full of biases. You know, there's diversity speeches and everything. I'm not going to go there. That's not my thing today. What I'm going to say is that, unfortunately, the human condition pits people against us naturally. And we can't use those things as an excuse for not going further in life. I mean, if I have a brick wall right here and I can't get past it, I can stand here and I can complain. I can make excuses for the brick wall. But that doesn't move the brick wall. What I need to focus on in that case is how to get around the brick wall, or how to get over it, or how to plow through it. All right, I need a dump truck or a rope, probably. Or if I want to do the hard work, I can get a shovel. All right, so there are so many things that, you know, where we come from, and there are even well-meaning people that come into our lives, and people close to us who care about us. And they'll tell us, well, because we're this way, or because you come from here, or because your family came from this area, that you're somehow at a disadvantage. And I don't negate that. There are disadvantages for people, and it's unfortunate. Sometimes other people do have it easier. But there are also great stories of people who come from worse situations than some of us do, who overcame things anyway. And I say that because that's something that a lot of people don't like to address, and I understand that. But we all have challenges, and it's not as important, the challenge in front of you, as how you respond to that challenge. I mean, we've had so many incredible things happen. I mean, we had our first black president. I mean, who thought that would ever happen? I mean, talk about somebody who overcame some obstacles, right? I mean, hey, and you know, I think every president probably did a few good things, and every president probably made some mistakes, and I'm not the president, so I'm not going to go there. That's about as deep as I go into politics, but especially just, I mean, there's no point with it. But the other thing is that you want to realize that leadership is not positional, it's personal. You've probably all had that person who they say, hey, everybody, I'm the leader. Have you heard somebody do that? There are people out there who will do that because they're losing control. I'm going to tell you right now, that is not the leader. And I'm going to tell you two things too. I used to be that guy, and I'm not that guy anymore. I did not know about leadership, and then I knew about leadership. In fact, here's a little life hack. Do you want to know how you can tell who the real leader is in the room? In any situation, if you have a leader, and maybe people aren't real fond of them, and you're like, man, I can't wait for this person to stop talking, and that person leaves the room. You want to know who the leader is? Here's exactly how you can tell. When that person walks out, who does everybody look at and they go, what should we do now? There's usually one or two people in any crowd that people look at and go, what should we do? That's the real leader in any audience. And that person usually is able to relate to people. It's usually one of their own peers in a lot of cases, who people respect their opinion. And so being a leader doesn't, you know, you can be a boss, like he said. You can be a manager. That doesn't mean you're a leader. It means you're in a leadership position. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a leader. And so as a leader, you want people to follow you. So one of the other things is that people say things like, it doesn't matter why I do what I do. Some people have said this. You may not have heard this one. It doesn't matter why I do what I do, as long as I get the job done. And it makes sense in a way that in business, for example, the bottom line is what matters, because you have to make money for a business to grow and prosper and for people to have jobs. But it is really important for people to understand why you do what you do. Because regardless of your credentials or how many degrees, you can have more degrees than a thermometer. And if people don't know why you're doing what you're doing, they're not going to be as inclined to follow you. And so when people understand that you have a deeper reason that they also believe in for why you're doing what you do, people will want to follow you. They'll want to support you. They'll, even at their own expense, sometimes go out of their way. I mean, I do a lot of work with the military. I've literally had people come up to me and try to stuff money in my hand and saying, hey, will you take this and give it to these guys that you're doing resilience training for? And I don't take that money if they're doing it that way. But they're saying, I mean, these are people with their hard-earned efforts and their resources saying, we believe in what you're doing to help these men and women who are coming back from a war and might be struggling. We want to support what you're doing. And the important thing to realize there is that when that kind of thing happens, it's not even about me. They're not buying me entirely. They're buying me enough, but it's not that they want to support me. It's they want to support what I stand for. And when people understand why you do what you do in your campus club or in your job or whatever it is that you're leading, when people understand why you do it, they'll be more likely to follow you. There's a great thing that a guy, how many of you heard of Simon Sinek? Have you heard of Simon Sinek? He wrote a book called Start With Why. It's one of the best books in the world. If you haven't read it, I highly suggest it. Start With Why. And I say that because I know college students don't have nearly enough books to read already. But get the audiobook on Audible or something. It's one of the best, most insightful books on getting people on your side. It's incredible. And this is what he said. He said, if you follow your why, other people will follow you. And I didn't used to know that. I used to just say, hey, this is my job, I'm doing it. I didn't include any reason why I do what I do. Whenever someone asks me what I do now, I usually start off by saying why I do something. And that's something Simon teaches, or Simon says, however you want to put it. But something important for you to understand is that I don't come from a place of privilege. My personal story, I'm just like most of you in almost probably every way or more ways than you would think. I grew up in a very poor family just west of Detroit, Michigan, in a factory town. No resources. I always tell people we were poor, except we couldn't, we were po. We couldn't afford the other O and the R, And we used to, eat my grandma's house 2 or 3 days a week. I always thought it was because grandma had better food. My mother was very good at hiding things from us. Turns out my grandmother had food. And, if you can spend all the money you have and have nothing left over, my family trumped that. Because my family spent more money through credit cards and driving us downward into debt. And we actually had less than nothing, if that's even possible to imagine. And so when my parents divorced at 12 and my mother moved to Florida, I chose not to go with her. I went with my dad. Well, he went to jail. So at 12 years old, I don't know if you can relate to this, at 12 years old, I had nobody in my life. Like nobody. There was no safety net. I was now in an inner city part of this town where I had never lived. I lived way out on the outskirts before. Wasn't much better. But I would stay awake at night thinking, I didn't do anything to deserve this. Like, what's the point of life even? Like, why am I even here? Confused, 12, 13 years old, just coming into adolescence, junior high school. And it was nothing of my doing. It was just a raw deal. Sometimes we just get a bad hand dealt to us in life. And then you fast forward, I decided to join the Army in 2003, right after my graduation from high school. It's not that I didn't have other opportunities. I actually, I graduated with a pretty high GPA in high school. I was always about a C student, but in 10th grade I decided to get serious. And I always tell people it's not because I was smart, it's because I just wanted to do well. It's amazing how desire can sometimes trump your actual level of intelligence. You figure out the way a system works and you just kind of work that system and you can kind of go up in it. To my own admission, I wasn't the smartest kid in class, but I knew that there were a lot of people that were doing things differently, and I just did it the way that worked best for me. With my learning style, I couldn't do it the way a lot of other people were doing it. I had to make it work for me, and that's something we all have to do. So I joined the Army at 18. I ended up getting assigned to an infantry unit, and that was my job, was infantry. That's the guys who go through and kick in doors, and we go pick fights with bad guys. That was the job I did. And I went to Afghanistan in 2006. And while I was there, I was a team leader in a recon platoon. It was an infantry platoon. And I was there about 5 months. And while I was there, among other things, 2 of my vehicles that we were inside of were blown up and totally destroyed while we were inside them. And that's kind of a wake-up call when you're driving in a car, or it was an armored vehicle. But we ran over the first one on April 18th of 2006. And it was up on a dirt road in Afghanistan, and we ran it over. It blew up the vehicle, set it on fire. I had to drag one of my guys out who was half conscious from the blast. Nobody died, thankfully, and I was physically uninjured in that. And a few months later, fast forward, the second one just about killed me. And you can't even think by looking at me what I'm about to tell you. The second one took place on July 24th, and we were driving down the road through Kandahar, and a white minivan got up next to my door. I was in the front passenger seat, And so he got in front of us. We went to pass him on the left. So as we're passing him, I'm about from here to this table. We're passing him just like you pass somebody who's going really slow in traffic. And as we got right up next to him, the entire minivan exploded. And he blew himself and his van into about 10,000 pieces in the middle of the street. And I woke up burned and bloody, laying in a ditch on the side of the road. Again, you can't tell. My entire face and neck were second-degree burns. I have third-degree burns on both my hands. I didn't bring pictures today because, well, they are extremely graphic. But if you do want to see pictures and see how bad it actually was and put it in perspective, my website is easy to remember. It's called blownupguy.com. And there's tens of thousands of guys like me who got blown up in these wars and all that. And another issue for another day. But I just thought, I'm that guy who thought, hey, I got blown up, so maybe it'd be really funny to have a website called blownupguy.com. I learned that when we go through bad things in life, we all tend to have coping mechanisms. I learned that sarcasm and humor is mine. Like they give you a Purple Heart, which is an award if you get blown up or shot. And so they give you a license plate, too, with a Purple Heart on it. So I put nice try on mine because the suicide bomber was the only guy who died that day. So I just thought, hey, nice try, buddy. And that was that. But I spent 14 months of my life, a year and 2 months, at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio. Burn treatment, reconstructive surgery. God bless the nurses who had to do the things they had to do to save my life. The night I got there, they had to take razor blades and scrape the burned, charred skin off my hands and face and neck while I was still awake and conscious. And I'll say this, I don't know if any of you have ever been to a point where you just prayed to die, but that was the one time in my life I knew that if I could just go unconscious or die, I would finally be out of pain. Because I was literally being tortured to save my life, physically. And they did what they had to do. And I'll tell you right now, I thank God for unanswered prayers. The thing about it is, when you're going through a really difficult time, you can only see about 2 feet in front of you. All you can focus on is the hard thing that's in front of you. What you can't see is the bigger picture that other people can see of your life. It's like the picture of your life on a canvas. You can only see about 2 feet in front of you, but you can't see the whole thing. It's just the nature of being you and being me as humans. We're the main character in our own story. And by virtue of being in that position, we can't see the greater perspective. I never imagined I would be somebody who talks in public. I never meant to do this. I always tell people, if I suck, don't worry. I never meant to do it anyway. And I just sort of fell into it, and I found it helped some people in a bit, and so I kept doing it. But I've been doing it for 10 years now, and I've had the privilege of speaking to hundreds of thousands of people in audiences across the world. And that's just insane. I mean, I'll have like military officers on military bases driving me around. How weird is that? And I'm like, I wonder if they know I'm just like this lower enlisted guy who got blasted, and I've got like this field grade officer, this colonel, driving me around an Air Force base. In fact, I had a guy pick me up. I was speaking in Northern California for an event, and a guy picked me up. He picked me up in a Hummer, one of those big H2s. I said, hey, bud. I got in, introduced myself. Thanks for the ride. I said, hey, just so you know, I don't want to freak you out. The last 2 times I was in a Hummer, they both exploded randomly. So, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, one of those things. So, thankfully it was California, not Afghanistan. So, here's the deal. Before leading other people, you have to learn how to lead yourself. If you can't lead yourself, you can't be honest and raw with yourself and making the right decisions, you're going to have a very difficult time leading other people, because people are going to see you putting standards on them that you yourself are not willing to live up to. And that's just immediately people start disrespecting that. They can't have respect for that, and nobody could blame them. But these things I want to talk to you about, this is how you can become these 6 things, and I'll write a few of them out on here for you. These are things you can do, you can practically apply as you walk out of here to your campus club or to whatever it is you're doing. These 6 things I'm going to teach you, these will last the rest of your life. The rest of your life, you will be able to look back on these things and go, all right, I'm trying to do this. How do I get people on my side? And you can sort of use this as a filter. So I'd highly suggest you write these 6 things down. And I'm going to use an example throughout these lessons of a buddy of mine named Mike who I mentored. He's a perfect example. So the first thing you want to do is, I call this the mission. I should have been a doctor with my handwriting. I was going to be, but then I decided I wanted to shoot machine guns and blow stuff up. And never got around to the med school thing. So the first thing is a mission. And with mission, all that means is think about what people want. Everybody wants something. And the thing about it is that, and if you don't have notes or anything, at the end you can take a picture of that if it'll help you out. The thing about with what people want is that a lot of people will say they want something, but what they actually want is something else. And that doesn't make a lot of sense. But think about this. If somebody says, I want more money, or Brian, I want $1 million. They say they want $1 million, but why do they really want $1 million? If I gave them $1 million, if you said you wanted $1 million and I gave you $1 million and you sat it in a bank account and you never touched it and you didn't make any interest on it and you never did anything with it, are you happy? Well, you got $1 million, right? But what's the point, right? What you probably really wanted was to buy the nice car, maybe have some financial security. A lot of people, you come from nothing like me. It's like, you offer me something free, I'm going to take it from you. So I always tell people, like, that's where I come from. I don't come from abundance. I come from a place of scarcity. And so, but the thing is, a lot of times people will say one thing, and as leaders, we need to understand, and we need to be able to look at what they say they want and try to look right beneath and go, okay, what do they really want? Because, again, with the money, $1 million, they might want financial security. They might want a new car. Here's a crazy one. I was speaking at Texas A&M University in College Station. Anybody been to A&M? Anybody from there? Okay. Well, I was speaking there a few years ago at the May School of Business, and I met this lady. She had a bachelor's from somewhere else, and she said, I'm coming back to A&M. I'm going to get my master's degree. I said, well, that's really cool. What are you gonna do when you get your degree? And she said, well, I'm not going to use it. I said, okay. You're going to drop 100 G's on a degree, on an MBA that you're not going to use. I said, why do you want the degree? You know what her reason was? She said, everybody in my family has graduated from A&M. They're Aggies. And I don't have a degree from A&M. So did she want a degree from A&M, or was she actually looking for affirmation from her family? The very people who are supposed to by nature accept her as she is. I mean, I kind of thought it was really sad. In addition to that, it was probably a huge waste of money unless she's going to use it. That's the thing. If you're going to spend money on anything, try and have it so it makes you money back. But again, as leaders, you need to hear what people say they want. Because if you have like a campus activities idea, the first thing you want to figure out is who wants it. It's kind of like that question, who cares? Like, is it something people actually want? And if they do want it, ask questions. Find out deeper why they want it. It goes back to that why. Okay? With Mike, when I mentored this kid, I met him when he was a sophomore at Colorado State University. And he was through a mutual friend, introduced us. And he said, Brian, I want to get into speaking. He knew I had spoken, I'd written some books. And I said, okay, why do you want to speak? Because number one, I knew he wanted to speak, but I knew there was more to it than this. And he said, well, I had a few friends a few years ago commit suicide, and I became suicidal, and then I was able to move beyond that. And he said, and I want to give hope to other college-age kids like me who are just at their wits' end and they want to end it all. Because I know what that journey is like, and I can help them not do that, because somebody had helped him that way. So even though he said he wanted to speak, what he really wanted, speaking was the means to the end. It wasn't the end. It was the reason. Speaking is what was going to help him get what he really wanted. Which is, again, the example with money is the same thing. And it's kind of funny because when he wrote his book, we were going back and forth with his title and subtitle of his book. And he knows how to make money. The kid's very entrepreneurial. And I said, okay, you're writing this for college kids. And he gave them out in colleges. And I said, well, with this subtitle, we need to catch people's attention. I said, tell me. You're a college kid. What do college kids want? And he said, man, we want more money, more fun, and we don't want to starve to death as we're trying to graduate college. So he wrote his book called Campuspreneur, How to Have More Fun, More Money, and Survive College Without Starving to Death. Colorado State University pre-ordered 1,000 copies of that kid's book in one swing. And on orientation day, he came in and he handed them all out. I don't know. Is anyone else a sophomore in here? Second year, third year? If you created a resource and made like $7 or $8 grand in one swing, that'd be pretty cool, right? That's exactly what he did. Because he focused on what people really wanted. And then you have like a bonus section in the back about 100 ways to make ramen and enjoy it. It's like horrible. And stop living off saltine crackers. And funny thing about that is that he was actually speaking at Penn State University, and he had one of his professors dock his grade down because he was doing well in the class, but he was gone a lot because he was speaking. And he had a lady that night, a student, tell him that she was suicidal and she was going to kill herself that night. And she decided after hearing his story that she wasn't going to. So do you think Mike really cared if he got his grade docked down a bit? Did that professor have any idea the kind of work Mike was doing? I mean, like, Mike made the right decision. He was also making more money than the professor who docked his grade. So, I'm like, more power to you, buddy. But so the first thing is the mission, what people actually want. The second thing is what I call an ambush. Everybody gets ambushed. And ambushes, I want you to write this word next to it in parentheses, it's problems. Everybody faces problems. If you want to succeed at anything in life, find problems and offer solutions to it. Everybody pays money to fix problems. You think about anything you buy, in some way, shape, or form, you're fixing a problem. It might be a lady buying some new earrings. Hey, she thinks it'll make her look a little bit better. You want a fancy car, guys? Why? Because when you roll up in the club, you want people to notice you, right? I mean, I'll be honest with you. As a guy, when I was 18, 19 years old, I wanted to get noticed. I had a flashy new Mustang and everything. Had a pony package on it. It was cool. I'd just gotten back from the military overseas, and I wanted this nice convertible. I was living in Miami, Florida. I'm like, yeah, dude, that's what I wanted. What was the real problem it was solving, though? I was an insecure young kid. That was the problem. I thought if I got validation from other people that it was going to help me look good and get more acceptance. It's totally stupid, right? But we all do it. And what I learned in that, too, is if I give people power to validate me and say, okay, now you're good enough, I also give them the power to invalidate me. And go, you know what? You did this. You're not good enough anymore. And you hand that power to people. And that might be probably the best thing I'll say this whole talk right there. But make sure you don't do that. We all want acceptance, but you got to know where to draw the line and be secure in yourself. But with the problems people have, think about what are the literal problems people are dealing with. They don't have enough money. They have no friends. Maybe they're alone. What are those things? And once you identify what the actual problems are, and this is kind of like I've learned this more in business than anywhere. Think about how those problems make people feel. Because people respond when we start talking on an emotional level that they connect with. So when you're on campus trying to solve a problem, and you know what they want, and you've identified some problems, when you talk to people, talk to them on a level of emotion. This is like marketing 101. You stay up late and see any infomercials, that's exactly what they're doing. And then they go, hey, but wait, there's more. If you order in the next 10 seconds, we'll give you 3 more. There's a whole lot more to that, but people respond because we're emotional creatures. When we talk in a way that relates to people on an emotional level, people will start noticing us and getting involved more. It's the craziest thing. You could be doing everything right I talk about today, but if you're not talking to people on a level of emotion or from a place of conviction on what you believe, they're less likely to engage with you. Again, I never got into speaking for any superficial cause. Like, I actually believe what I'm telling you right now. Like, this is stuff I've learned that's helped me, and I actually care about you. I don't know if you realize that. I don't know you, but I care about you. I want you to win. I realized when I was in Afghanistan, when I woke up in that ditch, that my life was probably over. And I actually had this great sense of regret that I hadn't. The thing was, like, I wasn't worried about where I'm going. I'm more of a person of faith personally, so I kind of dealt with that question. But what came to mind in place of that was, what did I do for other people, and how did I make this world a better place while I was here? I was 20 years old, and my life, as I knew it, was literally about to end. I didn't think I was going to make it out. And when you're about to die, the most important questions in life come right to the surface. And that's what it was. And that's why I do what I do. I'm not here trying to be the best speaker for you. I just want you to have this good information that can help you do something in your life, because I know when I get to the end of my life, I'm going to ask that question again. Did my life even matter? Did I do anything for other people? Or was it just for me? And that regret is painful. And I got to experience that early on in my life rather than at the end of my life where I didn't have time to come back and do it different. So think about when you talk to people. Like with Mike, for example, he wanted to get into speaking and write a book. But you know what? He felt really frustrated and overwhelmed because there are so many people talking about how to do it. He didn't know who actually knew what they were talking about. He's like, write a book, holy crap, that's a huge project. Like, where do I even begin? And he's just frustrated. Now, I didn't even need to talk to Mike on that level because Mike was already sold on it. He already knew what he wanted. But if I was trying to get Mike to have me help him, I would have said exactly that. I'd say, hey man, you want to speak, but maybe you don't know where to start. You feel a little overwhelmed, and you're looking to try and figure out what to talk about and who will book you to speak and if you get paid to do it so you can actually pay your bills while you help people. It's frustrating. I would have talked to him on that level because if I would have, he'd have gone, man, dude, you totally get it. Yeah, man, I'm just like, I'm done, man. My brain is so fried. I don't even know who to think. I'm just burned out. I'm talking on emotion right there. So the third thing you want to do is to identify your allies. Allies, these are basically, well, you know what an ally is a teammate, but also think of it from the position of a mentor. All right. Mentors change everything. The reason I'm here today speaking to you is because while I was in the hospital, I met a guy who said, hey, if you're interested, I'll show you how to do something with this whole terrible thing that happened to you in Afghanistan. I just happened to take him up on it. And there's a difference between bosses and mentors. I loved what you said. You hit the nail on the head. Was that you? You learned that from them? You know, every organization I go to, even if there's a man as the figurehead, there's always a woman or a team of women that make things happen. I'm yet to find that not to be true. So congratulations, you guys are leaders. But it's true. Oh, I know. And that's a great point, though. You know, a lot of men wouldn't have done that, what you just did.
Well, it's because a man is only elevated to the status of the woman he associates with.
That's right. I like that. Boy, you've had some good people in your life, man. I can tell your DNA automatically. So many men would not want to say what you just said. I commend you for that. I really do. Because, you know, the boss is somebody. Think of yourself not as a boss, but as a mentor. Like, when you leave this room with everybody you associate with, think to yourself, how can I be this person's mentor? Because here's the difference. A boss is somebody who's like a slave driver. Got to get this done. You got to show up on time. That's the general feel. Yeah, being a boss is a position. But when you come at it from a position of mentoring, when you see yourself as a mentor to other people, you're basically saying, how can I help you get from where you are to where you want to be? And people talk about building businesses and being the next so-and-so and the next this. It's got nothing to do with glorifying yourself. It has everything to do with helping other people get what they want. And I don't know who said it a long time ago, probably some old guy. He said, if you'll just help enough other people get what they want, you'll get everything in life you want. And that's the name of the game. And so always think of yourself as the mentor in people's lives. And here's two ways that you can relate to people in a way where they will see you as a mentor, somebody worthy of following. There's connection. I'll just abbreviate. There's connection and there's credibility. This is how you start to become a mentor in somebody's mind. Connection and credibility. Connection is basically when someone looks at you and they go, yeah, that person's kind of like me. You ever notice how people tend to group together with people who they feel are just like them? You know, most of you sitting in here, if you're from different colleges, you're probably sitting with people from your college because there's a connection. Maybe it's where you're from. I mean, I was in London speaking, and I met a guy on the tube, which is their subway, who was like from New York City. Now I live in Texas. I'm not from New York, but he's from America. He's like, dude, you got to check out this place to eat. And I'm like, dude, I'm going there. Total stranger. He might not have any idea what good food is, but hey, he said it. I connected with him. And the thing, yeah, the connection is literally, it's just when I met my mentor, he had been injured in Vietnam. And so he knew the path I was walking. And so I hear a buzzing noise too. Not sure what that is. Okay. But like, I related to my mentor. With Mike, he related to me because I'd had some struggles. He had heard of my story. And so when you're trying to get people on your side, think about like when you're approaching new people, like how are you just like them? This whole conference, I've been walking around, I've met a handful of people from Dallas. I live in Dallas. So I'll say, hey, I live in Dallas too. What are you doing there? And we just start talking. We've got that thing in common. And then the credibility piece is this. Everybody's asking this question. If you're teaching something or leading something, everyone's asking this question here. Why should I listen to you? And sometimes we ask that question and we realize the person in charge has no like business leading us in this direction. It's literally like what's your life experience that I should listen to you, that you can get me to where I want to go? Mike knew that I could teach him how to speak and write a book because I'd done it. And I'd been doing it for several years at that point. And so he knew immediately I had the credibility. So with whatever it is you're doing, always think about ways that you can present to people, even in subtle ways. You're not bragging on yourself, but people have the right to know that you can get them to where they're trying to go. And it's really important. If you really care about people, they need to understand that. All right. And the last thing, another quick tip here with credibility. If you screw up, if you drop the ball, own it. Nothing will shoot you in the foot faster than making a mistake and blaming everybody else or making an excuse for it. And again, I was the master of this. I had no leadership growing up. I didn't know what to do. Now, I didn't want to be the problem, right? So I'll just blame the world. I'll blame everybody else. Can't do that. The best thing you can do, if you drop the ball, as fast as you can, own it. And here's why. If you don't own it and everybody knows you were wrong, they're all going to jump on you. And there's going to be very little mercy. Because people are going to say, no, you did that. And then they walk away and they don't trust you. Because they know if you make a mistake, you're looking out for yourself and nobody else. If you do admit it, if you make a mistake and you go, you know what? I totally dropped it. I totally screwed that up. But I'm going to fix it and I'm going to keep going. We're going to keep moving. People tend to be extremely forgiving. Not always, not everybody, but most people tend to be extremely forgiving to a person who will say, hey, I jacked it up. Now again, you can't keep jacking up that same thing. All right, because then they're just going to go, oh, he's just incompetent. You know, the credibility thing. They don't know what they're doing. All right, but if you do drop the ball, if you make a mistake, own it. And here's the thing. In your leadership journey, nobody wants to fail, but you can't avoid it. All right, so as you go, just jump in and start doing things. If you screw up, apologize, make amends, fix it, and then move on and don't do that again. The guy who founded Dell Computer, billionaire, Michael Dell, I think he was speaking at UT up in Dallas, and he said, if you want to succeed, you need to double your rate of failure. And he didn't mean go out there and intentionally fail twice as much. He meant just get out there and start doing things, and if you screw up, okay, fix it, keep going, and as you do that more, what you're doing is you're honing in, you're sharpening your skill faster than everybody else. And with that, you'll become a better leader. So the next thing is give people, I'm just going to put process here. This is a mission plan. This is a process, number 4. People, when we make things too complicated, I'm giving you a process here, something you can follow. When we make things too complicated, people just tune out. I don't know if you've ever heard a speaker who just went on and on and on, and you're sitting there going, why am I here again? I mean, I grew up in a church where it's like, why is this guy still talking? Like, what's the point of even being here? Like, what's he even talking about? I've been in not just those settings, but many others, and it's like, what are we doing again? And it just went on and on. It's because there wasn't any sort of roadmap that was leading people through either the presentation or leading them along, something they're trying to accomplish. For example, if you're on your campus and you're trying to, let's say, put together an event, you want to bring in some talent, like right after this. After this event, you're probably going to want to bring in some talent, some speakers. Here's an example. If you're a leader, break down what your team needs to do to get that talent there. So what you probably need to do is, first of all, who do we want? Second of all, are they available? What days? What's their price? And then make the event happen. That would be like 5 things. So that's my 10-minute warning, by the way. Stairway to Heaven. I grew up on classic rock and rated R movies, so Led Zeppelin all the way, buddy. But with processes, people understand better. And if let's say that scenario is true where you're trying to bring somebody in, well, now everybody knows they're on the same page. Okay, with all the details in that mix, these are the 5 big things. And not only that, but here's what's also important. You can assign people different roles, like this is your job, you 3 take this. Then everybody knows what their job is and everybody knows what their job isn't. Because I'll tell you, if you really want to create problems in a group, just get people not understanding what is their responsibility and what is not their responsibility. Next thing you know, this girl's yelling at that girl or that guy over there because she thought he was supposed to do it. Well, he thought she was supposed to do it. Now everybody's trying to beat each other up. In the military, people get in fistfights over that kind of stuff. It's like just go outside in the pit and roll around and, whatever, get your aggression out. I know that's not the way to do things outside the military, but you don't want that kind of thing. And it's all because nobody had any clue what their role actually was. So when you break down things into a process, it becomes a lot easier for people to understand their role in the bigger picture. And not only that, people want to understand, they want to understand that the role that they're playing is an important one. Have you ever had like a role to play in anything, whether in school or in college, and you're just like, this thing just doesn't make any difference? It's like that kid who plays the tree in the school play. Like, you don't need, that tree doesn't need to be there. And you're sitting there going, I'm not the main character, nobody knows I'm here. Yeah, like that doesn't motivate anybody, all right? So think about that process. When I first met my mentor, Dave, he started training me. Here's what he said. He said, Brian, if you want me to train you, here's 3 things. I was getting out of the military at the time. He said, move to Colorado, work for my company, and I'll train you to become a speaker. 3 things. So you know what I did? I moved to Colorado, I worked for his company, and he trained me to be a speaker. It changed my family tree, it changed my life. It made everything that I went through in Afghanistan, all the pain afterwards, it made a lot of it worth it because I found a lot of meaning in my life after the worst thing actually produced the most meaning in my life. And a lot of people don't understand that. So
Did he help pay for any of your moving or anything like that?
The what?
Did he help pay for any of your moving or anything?
Well, the military did. Yeah, military on my way out there, like we moved you once. So, and I went to the mountains, man.
Like, what would you say to do? Like, what would a person do if they don't have like that type of like financial backing?
Well, I think it'd just be circumstantial. I mean, if like I knew, like this guy had been speaking for 40 years.
Yeah.
He'd written several books. He getting paid thousands of dollars to speak. Like I'd beg, borrow, or steal that money to get out to Colorado to be around that guy. Because I would know, man, if I can get one good event, I can make all that back up and get on top.
Yeah.
It's kind of like investing on yourself on the low end. Like I might take a chance with all this money and it might not work, but that's just one of the things in life that you have to measure that risk. And so same thing with Mike. I told him, I said, tell me why you want to speak. Who do you want to speak to? And what's your message? Once we had that lined out, now I knew exactly how to guide him. But until I knew those answers, I really didn't know because I didn't have enough information about him. All right. In fact, as I was revising this speech last week, because I give this talk in colleges all over the country, as I was revising it on this particular topic, I was adding that story about Mike. I literally had a guy write me on Facebook. He said, hey, private message. He said, I'm trying to start a business. Could you give me a few steps on what I should do first? I'm talking about steps here. I'm talking about a process. And literally this thing drops in, my computer dings. Thought that was kind of funny. Kind of weird. I'm looking at the sky going, is somebody watching me? You know, it's like you talk about an old song, you know, that you haven't heard in years, and then it comes on the radio. You're like, man, this is getting weird. Life can be weird. But next thing, 5th thing, is a challenge. Think of a challenge. And by challenge, I mean action. When you are doing something as the leader, people need to know what their next move has to be. Don't ever leave a meeting where you are leading or you are a leader and you have people under you there. Don't leave a meeting without giving everybody some sort of action to take next. Because people leave and then they just kind of get busy with everything else, and then they come back and everyone says, hey, why didn't anything get done? Well, nobody did anything. You know, we all discussed a lot of good ideas and then they left the meeting with no action to take. And you don't want that. So give people one specific item or action to do as a leader whenever you're done talking or leading them or whatever the scenario is in your life, because again, people are drawn to simplicity. If you give one person one task to do, like it's very clear what they need to do. And you don't want to confuse people. And the thing about the action, a lot of times the action that you give people, that you challenge them to, it's going to be something that they don't know if they can do it. It's going to bring up a lot of doubts and fears. And am I ready for this role? If somebody asks you to run for student government or something like that, and you start getting these thoughts going, am I a good enough leader? Am I qualified? I don't know. There's doubts and there's all this stuff going through your head. Like, that's normal. Like, jump in anyway and figure it out. Like, that's the best thing you could probably do. Because then if you get to position, now you learn as you're in it. And I mean, half of things really are just jumping in and trying them and figuring them out along the way. Like, I think it was Colin Powell. He was a general years back in the Army and led troops in combat. He said, he said, if I've got 60% of the information I need, I take action. 30% is too little, I don't have enough. If I wait until I have 90% certainty, I've already missed the opportunity. And that's a really great way to think. If you're about 60 or 70%, like, I think maybe I could do this, jump on it. And then like, it's like if you don't know how to swim, just jump in the lake. Like you're gonna figure it out, I promise. And it's scary though. Like people don't always get it, and you know, you just have to figure it out along the way. But the sixth thing is this. I'm gonna put this real simple. I'm gonna paint pictures. And here's what I mean. I'm talking about mental pictures. When I was talking about people wanting more money, again, it wasn't about the money, it was about what they wanted. So think back on what people really wanted, like we talked about. They wanted the financial security or the new car. Think about what their life literally looks like if you can lead them to a place where they get what they want. Maybe on your campus is some sort of social issue, and you can say, you know what? This is a good word, by the way, imagine. And you tell somebody or a group of people, imagine if you could walk across campus at nighttime without being afraid. If you have a demographic of people maybe who have been assaulted in their life and they're afraid to go out at nighttime, I have female relatives in particular who are like that. And I say, no, I have a new program that's going to keep this campus safe. Imagine if you could walk across campus at night without being afraid. See, I'm literally painting a picture of what it can be like that they want. Now, you can also talk on the flip side. There's the good, but then there's the bad. And you want to be careful with the bad stuff because you don't want to manipulate people, but people also need to know the cost of not getting involved with something. That's very important. So you could say, you know what, we could do this or not do this, but you know, the crime rate's on the rise and the percentages, the numbers are telling us. And you know, it could be literally dangerous to walk across campus at night by yourself. What if you're at a party and you're trying to get back and it's only a block away? Yeah, I can make it, right? Who wants to live in a place like that? All right, so that's a very negative picture. That's actually could be considered a fear tactic, but the thing about it is, as long as it's beneficial and helps people, it's okay to mention those things. In fact, they need to understand them. And I just want you to understand, if nothing else, apply these things to your life. Feel free to take a picture of it afterwards. Apply these to what you're doing on campus. Apply them when you graduate. Apply them in your job, because you will become the kind of leader that other people want to follow when you start speaking this way and communicating with people in a way that matters to them. So I think you're all amazing. I appreciate you. And again, I do care about you genuinely. I really do. And I want to see you succeed. So you've all been amazing to me today. So thank you.
So from this session, I learned that being a leader, it's not something that necessarily comes naturally. It's something that you do learn through life experiences and getting help, especially from a mentor. So it's good to get connected with people, somebody that has been through something that you've been through, or you have some form of connection to them, and it's good to grab onto that and learn from them. And also that when you're a leader, you won't have to tell people. People are going to be able to see you, and they're going to be able to know that you're a leader. You don't have to force that on anybody. So I thought it was very insightful, and I really enjoyed the session.